Welcome back. Okay, so we've got our list boxes on the UCI. We have options, but clicking on them right now doesn't do anything. Right now, all it does is change literally what is on that box. We need to use that information to control the NV32H. And we can't just send this string to the NV32H because laptop 1 doesn't mean anything to that device. It needs to receive the words HDMI 1. We need somehow to take the information we're getting from this control, convert it to information that is useful to the NV32H so that it can do its job. Now, there's a lot of different ways we could skin this cat. There are so many different paths we can go. Let me tell you, when even we were talking about creating this class and figuring out the way we want to do it, we talked about a whole bunch of different options that we could choose, and they were all right. Some of them were more clever than other ways. Some of them were more efficient in other ways. Some of them had more complexity in one area, but less complexity somewhere else. You could do it in all kinds of different ways. And the answer is, as you are progressing as a coder, you will find that the way that you approach a problem is in some way expressive of the way that your brain works. And if another coder is standing behind you and looking at your code, they're going to tell you that they would have done it differently. And they're right too. All of them could be right. Don't let someone else's code tell you that your code is wrong. The way that your brain wants to attack a problem is the right answer for you. That means the way that I'm going to show you this is a little bit representative of the way that my brain works, and that's fine as well. Ultimately, what I'm saying is that if you watch this and you say, hey, I would have done it some other way, don't write me. Don't tell me that. Just give yourself like an award and like a cookie or something and be proud of how different you are and that you did it differently. Okay?
I think they should just punch themselves in the face before emailing you.
If there's a button that could make that happen, then I would take it. Anyways, I'm going to show you this path because it's going to give me the opportunity to show you a couple of tools we haven't looked at yet. But the answer is yes, there's many, many ways to tackle a problem like this. This is just one of them. Okay, so we go into our block. Now you could do something really straightforward like saying, let's have a really long if-then statement, right? If the option that they pick is laptop 1, then we send the word HDMI 1. If it's laptop 2, we send the word HDMI 2. We could do that. We're not going to do that. I want to write a code that is scalable and nimble and adaptable for the future. I don't want to write every single line myself, especially what if we had 30 different options? I don't want 30 different choices on my if-then statements. What I want to do is, first of all, create another array. This other array is going to be all the names that are valid to the NV32H. So first things first is let's build that second array. I'm just going to duplicate this one up here. I'm going to slap it down here. This one will be called the array of actual names. And the actual names are going to be HDMI 1 and HDMI 2 and HDMI 3 and graphic 1. Those are the names that the actual NV32H wants. The way we can double check that is by looking at its control panel. That's how it appears here. Case sensitive, make sure you spell it and you get the spaces in there properly. That's what this control, the select by name control that we're going to target, is looking for. Okay. So I want to be able to leverage these arrays against each other. I want to be able to use array 1 and then look up something in array 2 to send it along the path. Awesome, we're going to do that, but not yet. First, let's think. Let's anticipate the needs of this design and how it might be getting complex later on. We know that there's multiple things that could ultimately change the routing of this system, right? We know that someone pressing the UCI is one of those possible stimuli. We know that plugging in the HDMI cable is another possible way that this room is going to be routed. I want to prepare for all of these, and I want to make my life easy. You probably know where I'm going with this. We're going to make a function, and that function is going to do everything. And it's going to do things that may seem like it's redundant, because like if you press the button on the UCI, why would you need the function to set the label on the UCI? But I'm going to do it because that means that I can then run that same function when the HDMI cable connects or something else. So that we're just going to have one simple function that does it all. So let's give ourselves that function. first of all, it's going to be when the display one select changes, we're going to run a function. So let's create a function. And that function is going to do several things. Now, because it's going to do several things, I want to start thinking about arguments in a slightly different way. We brought in arguments earlier into our function, and that's fine. But the way I like to think about arguments is that you can use the arguments to make a function really easy to read and really easy to fill out, too. Think about if you are ordering a sandwich, okay? And you're going to order a sandwich, then let's make a function that's called makeSandwich. And if you just run the function on its own, you don't even know what kind of function or sandwich you're going to get, right? But by creating some arguments, you can define some properties of that sandwich. So here, I'm going to make my sandwich, and the first argument is going to be, what kind of bread? And the second argument is going to be, what kind of meat? And what kind of spread on that sandwich, all right? Now, it may look kind of funny here, where you've got this function with all these questions in it, but when you recall that function within your event handler, you've got this nice little order list, right? All you have to do is answer the questions. So I could grab a string, and I can say what kind of bread? I want sourdough. And I'll grab another string, and what kind of meats?
Turkey.
You want turkey?
Mm-hmm.
Are you eating a sandwich right now?
Mm-hmm.
How did that happen?
Magic.
That was yes, I heard every word of what you just said. I'm going to add chicken, non-chicken water chicken. And then what kind of spread? I want pesto on my sandwich, all right? That is a really readable function for the next engineer down the line. I'm making a sandwich with these options, right down the order list along the way. So we're going to do the same thing with our change of our routing. So rather than make this routing called makeSandwich, we're going to call this route video and update UCI. That's all the things that I want to occur whenever the video routing changes. And rather than asking them for what kind of bread, well, first thing I want to know is which display are we changing? So I'm going to say, we're going to call this display number 1 or number 2. May seem weird to have these questions in your code, but again, it makes it so much easier when you're filling out this function later on. And I'm going to say, hey, what's the other information we need to know? We need to know which display we're changing. We need to know what the friendly name is of the new source and what the actual name is that we're sending to the NV32H. So let's call this friendly name. And we'll call this one actual name. All right. Now, inside this function, it's actually really easy. We can knock this function out super, super quickly. We need a real quick if-then statement, analyzing whether it's going to be the left or the right display. And then we're just going to update the things with these arguments coming in. So we'll grab a flow control, and we're going to analyze display number 1 or number 2. So we're going to say, hey, if the incoming display number 1 or 2 arguments equals the number 1, then we are going to what? Well, we're going to update that UCI. So we'll change the display 1 select string to whatever the friendly name is that the person ordered from our sandwich shop. And we'll go to the NV32H. We'll go to our named components. We'll set the MU NV32 output 1 select by name string to whatever the actual name is that we just ordered. Piece of cake. And we'll duplicate that for the right display. So else, if the incoming argument of display number 1 and 2 equals 2, then we're going to change the display 2 UCI field to the friendly name. And we're going to change the second output of the NV32H to the actual name. Piece of cake, all right? We don't know what the person is ordering yet, but we're preparing to know that if they order this, we're going to put it there. If they order that, we're going to put it there. We're the sandwich artist, and we're getting ready to make our sandwich. Before I finish this function, let's debug it too. I could make the debug a separate function somewhere else like we've done before, but you know what? I've already got all these arguments with this delicious information coming in right now. Let's just make the debug real quick. So I'm going to debug print
By the way, if your sandwich artist is ever seen debugging your sandwich, you need to go to a different sandwich shop.
Are you saying you'd prefer your sandwich to have bugs in it? You don't want them to debug it?
Listen.
You prefer a bug-fruitful sandwich?
Don't twist my words.
So I'm going to create my string. We'll concatenate our string block here, and we'll add a bunch of items here. Let's say, what are we going to say? We're going to say, hey, display number, and then we'll input whichever number they shoved in there. And then we'll say space was changed to space, leave a little room, and we'll change it to the friendly name. And then we'll add another one that says space, which is, and then we'll shove in one more with the actual name. Now, honestly, this is actually a little bit kind of ugly to read because you're reading this thing very vertically. This might be one of those cases where you choose to right-click a block and change it to inline inputs. That way you can read it horizontally. Display number something was changed to friendly name, which is actual name. That's a perfectly good way to do it. Personally, I don't like when my blocks are too wide. I don't like having to scroll that direction. So I'm actually going to go back to the external inputs for this. And in fact, you know what I might do? I might even just actually use a format string block for this one. The format string block, remember we used this to convert numbers earlier, but you can also use, remember this %S sign? You can use the %S to grab a string as its inputs. So I might go display number %S was changed to %S, which is %S. And then I'll grab these as my inputs to the format string block. Now these are all going to end up with the exact same end result, but I think this one actually is a little bit cleaner. That way this sentence is a little bit easier to read and I can grab that information coming in. Whichever way you want to do it, and the coding's the same. Get your debug in a way that looks good. And this function is now done. It's like done. It's so done, I never even want to look at it again. So if that's the case, I'm going to right-click on it, and I'm going to collapse the block. We could have done this several times earlier in the course of the class, but whenever you know that you're done with something and you just don't want to see the bulk of it, cluttering up your workspace, you can right-click and collapse it. The code still functions. This like sort of broken scale on the far right side tells you that it could be expanded if you wanted to. But now I know it's there. I don't need to worry about it. I'm just going to shove it out of my way so I can focus on what my event handler is going to do. Sound good? Okay, so now let's just fill in the information for our event handler. This is super easy. So we're not ordering sourdough, chicken pesto, as good as that sounds. What'd you have, turkey and salt?
Well, first of all, who puts spread on their sandwich?
Mayo is a spread.
No, mayo is a condiment.
It's a spread. That's what condiments are. They're different spreads. What else do you think a spread is?
Well, you don't put spread. Spread is something you put on turkey dinner, not turkey sandwich. Like cranberry spread.
Cranberry spread? I want you to Google the words cranberry spread.
I want you, the next time I come
find.
to your house and ask me, would you like some mustard spread on your sandwich?
I don't have mustard. I don't. Anyways, so I'm going to shove in the number 1. So when display 1 changes, we're changing left display. What's the friendly name that we're going to change it to? It's the string. It's the string of that UCI field that we literally just changed, right? So we're using display 1 string as the friendly name. They just selected it from our array. And then the actual name is, well now we've got a little bit of a snag. We've got to figure out how to convert our friendly name to our actual name. We'll take a break first, and then we'll tackle that in the next video. See you in a little bit. Go get some turkey spread
Gross.
while you're out.
Gross. You're a gross.